Okay, let's wrap up the conversation here, Ethan. I got some. We've been talking about all the good, and obviously it is so good. There's really nothing, not another way that you can put it as a Spurs fan. But when we look at the team in this lens now with De'Aaron Fox on it, and these rotations that we're talking about, what are the keys that stick out to you for if we want to make that play in race and maybe like win a game and try to get into a series or something like that? Or maybe even, jump up into the 7 or 8 range. If we want to accomplish that goal of getting to the playoffs, what are the things that kind of stand in the way right now when it comes to the makeup of the team, on the court?
Obviously, we don't have a backup center right now. Bassey's doing his absolute best in key moments. We have Mamu, but the Jeremy Sohan at backup center is not working. I'm fine with Jeremy coming in off the bench, but as a power forward, please let's find a solution at that center spot, whether that be through a trade or the buyout market. If we have to wait till off season, that's fine, but we're going to need a lot more minutes from Charles Bassey because the Sohan thing is just not working right now. Um, and then I would just say gelling together. Like that's been an issue without De'Aaron Fox, but suddenly we add
Hmm.
an all-star level guy like that. It's going to take some time. There's gonna be some messy moments, I'm sure, but we want to make the play-in tournament, so we're gonna have very little patience
Yeah.
despite that. Um, so that's going to be in the way. You only hope that the talent level of him coming into this team is enough to overcome any difficulties as far as chemistry and cohesion, offensively and defensively.
And that's kind of the point we were making when we talked about this game. Potentially that, what he brings can overcome that. But I still think there are some things in our control and other players' control that we're going to need to improve to get where we want to go. And like you said, Ethan, despite the circumstances, it's not going to be like, earlier in the season where we're like, hey, Devin Vassell's kind of getting back in, working into the injury. Now with De'Aaron Fox being added, and especially the time in the season, we don't really have time to lose more games if we want to accomplish that. So the ante is going to be upped despite the context of the circumstances. And so I think really the rest of our roster, our bench, playing consistently. I think that's
Hmm.
something that could potentially stand in the way. But I think obviously, the things that you touched on as well are going to be keys when it comes to that backup center position. I mean, that's something that's going to be huge when it comes to the makeup of the team. We'll see if there's a potential move that the Spurs make later this week. I feel like with the depth the Spurs have right now, we were texting about this, but we hadn't mentioned it on stream yet. That makes me almost feel like the Spurs aren't going to make a trade for the rest of the season, or at least, I mean, for this week, obviously, not the rest of the season because the deadline's
Hmm.
this week. Um, when it comes to that backup center spot, and as much as I do have some faith in Charles. Like I did see some good things when he came in, tonight, and helped out matching with Zach Edey. We also have an open roster spot. I forgot to mention that as well. So maybe we could sign somebody as well. Maybe that's a reason that we could be a sign that we're making a move. I don't know. I know I'm kind of going all over the place with that. There's some options that the Spurs have there at that backup center position, but when it comes to getting to the playoff, like you said, or like I was saying earlier, the bench, being able to execute like a Devin Vassell or a Keldon Johnson, we're going to need consistent plays from them. We can't have the night like we had tonight. We can't have that being a norm, when we're playing with De'Aaron Fox, for the first time. And it's just like that's
Yeah.
happening every night. That's something that we can't see. Um, but also, I don't think that we need them to be superhumans either, because I think what De'Aaron brings is going to make up for at least some of the mistakes that we already have right now. But again, if we don't have any contributions from them, or we have just a consistent, subpar level of contributions, that could still lead to close losses.
Yeah, I think the games will be a lot more competitive just from the sheer fact that we have De'Aaron Fox on the team. Like I know we've
Hmm.
lost 10 of our last 13, and it's been a real struggle session. Just other than that first game in
Yeah.
against Indiana in France, but um, I just have a lot of faith. Maybe I'm looking at this through Spurs colored lenses, Jude. I just have a lot of faith in the ability of De'Aaron Fox and what he can bring to this team. But I totally see where you're coming from. Um, the one open roster spot, my pipe dream is that we're able to get somebody off the buyout market.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be difficult because I feel like a lot of those guys want to go to a contender. However, what's the rule? If they're making the mid-level exception or more,
Yes.
like the top 10 teams basically can't sign them because they're already under the whatever apron.
Yeah.
I'm really butchering this, but
But
basically
I know what you're talking about, though.
in short, the
Cat
Spurs might
stuff.
have more of an ability to sign somebody off of a buyout than you'd think because of restrictions around the cap in the NBA. Um, I like some of the names in the comments. I see Jericho Sims. I say
Mhm.
Daron Sharp. I think of Nick Claxton, who might be available via trade, not necessarily buyout. Drew Eubanks would be funny, although I think he's pretty much set in Clipper land.
Yeah,
Um,
same with Barlow in Atlanta.
Unfortunately, a lot of the big names that are going to be impactful, though, I feel like are guards or wings right now. Like I think of Lonzo Ball. I think of who's the guy is it not with the Wizards right now? He played for Boston and Indiana. Uh,
I can't believe I'm
he
blanking
won
here.
Rookie of the Year, but he's one of the most. Malcolm Brogdon.
Okay, okay.
Malcolm
I was like
Brogdon
Michael
is
Carter
available.
Williams, but he
No,
didn't
not
play for
Michael
them?
Carter Williams. Malcolm Brogdon, and there's a few other names that are PJ Tucker, who's a good defender, right? But I think we're a backup center and a solid 3 and D guy off the bench away from being really, really safe in that playoff contention mode. I just don't think we're going to find both of those in the next 6 days
Yeah, and I
or
think
5 days.
and when you talk about the 3 and D shooter is kind of another need that we would like. That's I think when I'm talking about the Devin and Keldon stuff, maybe potentially holding us back in a game if both of them have bad shooting nights. Um, that kind of ties into that as well, because you just need that's where we're looking for that consistent shooting. So if we can get that from them, then that becomes less of a need. But I think that's why that and backup center are kind of the things that stand out in our mind right now. Because really, we don't just have a role play. Well, I guess you could maybe argue Champagny and Harrison, but again, they're not like a Doug McDermott like type of player. Does that make sense? Like Julian kinda is, but Harrison definitely, he'll do a lot more as much as he can be a catch and shoot guy.
Honestly, Jude, we might just be a good old fashioned Coach Popovich scream session away from Keldon, Devin just buying into their new
That's true.
roles and really becoming what we need. And that's better defensive minded players, role players that aren't going to take bad shots and stay within themselves on a team.
Yeah, I think you summed that up uh, completely perfectly there. Um, and yeah, it's just again that the ante is up for both of those guys. And as we go into, I just wanted to, and like you said there, Ethan, as we wrap this up, um, I'm with you. I think De'Aaron Fox is just going to fix a lot of this. Like, not to be Spurs colored glasses, not to just be a fan and say everything's going to be fine and everything's going to work out, and there's going to be no issues. And let's just shoo away all the issues that we saw on the floor tonight. That's not what we're saying. But adding 25 or a dude who can get you 60, an all star point guard with the speed that he has, again, with the ability that he'll have in a pick and roll with Victor Wembanyama, with the type of attention that Wemby's going to draw that will leave attention off of him. Because as much as he did have guys like DeMar DeRozan and Domantas Sabonis, Wemby is still a different enigma in himself, and obviously he's going to draw. He as much as like I said, De'Aaron Fox is still going to have attention on him for sure. Being next to Wemby will free things up for him as allow for him to play make, for other guys with the amount of attention that will be on those two. But I did want to talk about, just some of the things that could potentially hold us back. So it's not just all like, oh, it's going to work out because, De'Aaron Fox is coming in. As much as, in a sense, that is kind of true to an extent.
If this was 2K, we'd be fine. But this
Right.
is reality. So we have to see how this plays out.
Yes, yes. But definitely we'll be watching that interior defense. We'll be watching perimeter shooting from the role players. And then, of course, basking in the glory of what our new offense and new system is going to look like under De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama. And Winky's cheering. I heard him.
Yep, he's right here. He's screaming my name. He hates the computer.
Any final thoughts on the outlook for De'Aaron Fox moving forward, Ethan?
I think positive. I think we're in a really, really good place. Looking forward to the kind of pieces that we can kind of bring in the offseason around him and Victor, and see what kind of noise we can make going into the play-in tournament this season, Jude.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'm also very happy to just kind of be focused on winning games because as much as we want
Yeah.
to be, we want to have the contextual view, like that actually can get frustrating for us because at some point there's only so much you can say. Where now it's like, hey, we can just look to that and point to it. Like, okay,
hmm
if Devin went 5 for 15, and this is a night where Wemby has 30 and De'Aaron Fox has 30, and we lose by 10, that's
That's the
something.
problem.
Yeah, like we can point to that, and it's not like all these different, contextual things we have to think about. So I'm super excited to see our first game this Wednesday, which